Check 1, 2. Check.
What's on your
1, 2.
shirt?
Olive Garden.
Oh,
Unlimited salad and breadsticks. Champion.
My girlfriend's gonna love that shirt.
Does she like the OG?
She's a huge fan of unlimited breadsticks and salad.
I mean, who isn't? You don't have a soul if you don't like unlimited salad and breadsticks.
I would beg to differ.
You don't have a soul. Like that's well established.
I don't think Olive Garden is the restaurant that we all remember it to be when we're 10. Like we're like, oh yeah, that's a nice restaurant, and then you go as an adult, and it's just fucking chaos and poor people screaming at each other. Sorry, I'm kidding. So I have a challenge for you this episode, Keith.
Okay.
Let's see how far we can each get into the episode without using any profanity.
Fuck this. I'm just...
No, what if just for fun? We'll just do it for fun because maybe there's some really nice, sweet Jewish grandmothers who stumble upon this and they're like, ooh, look at these nice young men talking about my favorite movie, Fiddler on the Roof. Not that you have to be a Jewish grandmother to like Fiddler on the Roof, because I love Fiddler on the Roof, and I am neither of those things.
But it certainly helps.
I imagine it helps.
A Fiddler on the Roof. Sounds crazy, no?
We're talking about Fiddler on the Roof, which is my number 4 favorite film of all time. Though, if it's a list of like most beloved, I probably love this movie the most. It's not, it's a fine line. We're getting into all sorts of offshoots of our favorites when I even introduce that. But this is my most beloved film of all time. I want to hug it. I want to be hugged by it. I want it to be my father. I want it to curl up next to me and keep me safe and warm and happy. It's so good.
There's too much to unpack. It's
so good.
I thought we just wanted to talk about movies.
Oh, he's beginning to talk like a man.
So, Fiddler on the Roof, for those who might not know, is a 1971 musical drama comedy. It was directed by a man named Norman Jewison, based on a very famous stage play of the same name. It follows the main character, Tevye, who's the father of 5 daughters.
5 daughters.
And his other characters include his wife, Golde. I might butcher that. I feel like I never say that right. Golde.
You say it like fat bastard.
Christ, I'm getting all emotional from it,
Golde.
Golde.
And his 3 eldest daughters, Seitel, Huddle, and Hava. I think.
I've given up on names years ago. You should too. It's fantastic. It's liberating.
But it's about their love lives, and as they are getting older and preparing, reaching sort of marriage age, him and his culture, because I should have mentioned, it's at the turn of the century. It's turn of the 20th century in the early 1900s in a village in kind of Eastern Europe.
Ukraine? Is it in the Ukraine?
Ukraine. It is in the Ukraine, yes.
Why do I know more about this film than you do?
Because you're such a smart boy, Keith.
Thank you. About time.
And as has been unfortunately sort of the Jewish story, they're facing persecution from I believe it's the Russian government or a certain aspect of the Russian government.
Yeah, I think so.
So if that doesn't sound like your favorite type of movie,
a whole bucket
something's
of
wrong with you. Keith, before I just rant for half an hour straight on all the wonderful things,
yeah.
What did you know about this movie going in, and how did your viewing experience match up?
I knew really nothing about it going into it. I went into it thinking I would loathe it. One, just on the runtime, because it's like this is another one of Ev Duran's specials where it takes me to a week to watch the movie. You should have saw my face when I saw it had an intermission. I started shouting swear words, which we're trying to hold off on for this. But you got to be kidding me that there's an intermission in this movie. I can't, Everett. Just like Tevye, I looked up to God and I said, Everett. So I went in with low hopes, and maybe that was partially the reason why I enjoyed it. I did not think I would enjoy it, but immediately, when you see Tevye and he's addressing the camera and he's, riding down that dirt road and he's sort of just explaining the setup and the premise of the film, essentially, or the journey we're about to go on, and his moral values, and it leads into the song and everything, like, immediately, I was like, oh, I like this guy. Like, this seems fun. And I didn't think there would be any fun. Because, again, I really didn't know. I've heard of it, obviously, but, like, I have not paid much attention to it. So I didn't really know what level of drama or comedy or I didn't know what balance there was. And it immediately you could tell that it was just, this is going to be more fun than I thought it was. And his character specifically, which I'm sure you want to get into, was outstanding. It was, he's the lead of the film, obviously, but he is, for me at least, the reason to watch the film. Like, his performance is outstanding, and how he interacts with you as the viewer and makes you feel comfortable, and you immediately feel immersed into this town and his culture, and he's fantastic. So, briefly, I thought I really did enjoy the film. I might not rush to watch it again, but I did enjoy it, mainly because of him.
Yeah, that's you say so many good points. Anything complimentary you say is a really great point.
Perfect.
I think yes, I'm always fascinated when I can introduce this film to, like, friends of mine today who might not have any history with it, because all of them go into it, I think, with that same general perception, which is it's a musical set in 1901, and it's about Jewish culture and tradition in this foreign country, and about, it's just a lot of stuff where this isn't checking a lot of boxes for something I'm into. And I think people assume because it's a musical, it's going to be either really corny or really cumbersome or some combination of the two. Whereas I do believe this film is really genuinely funny.
Yeah. And
funny today. You can be someone today watching that movie for the first time, and it's really, really funny. Yeah. And the huge part of that, as you mentioned, is Tevye, played by a man named Topol, T-O-P-O-L.
You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know.
This is the part he was born to play,
1,000%.
Quite literally, because he has played this role more than anyone. And over his life, he played it in the film, obviously, and he's played it on the stage. He played it from the late 1960s up until, I think, 2010, in that range. He was playing this character on stage somewhere. He's just a legend, and his performance is so endearing and so warm and so inviting and so funny, but still so heartbreaking in the scenes he needs to be heartbreaking, and it's very subtle. A lot of stuff behind the eyes, but he's just this big bear of a wonderful man that you want to be in your life. Yeah. And from, as you said, the second he starts talking, it's sort of like a wink wink at the camera, and he's got this almost, like, he's not drunk, but he has this kind of like friendly, slurry energy where he's like, oh, yeah, come on in, I'll show you around, and you're just like, okay, man, wherever you want to take me, I'll go.
Yeah, I'm into it.
So he's just fantastic and wonderful, and I do think, honestly, no exaggeration, that he's easily on my top 5 favorite film characters of all time, and he is in the running for number 1. I mean, he is right there, 1, 2, or 3. He's everything you want from a protagonist in a film.
Rev Tevye, you won't be sorry. You won't be sorry.
I won't be sorry. I'm sorry already.
His performance, out of any movie I've seen, I would immediately be like, this is top 3 performances, because he just embodies that character. Like, it just like that feels as real as any character has ever felt. Like, oh no, they just got that guy. They just walked that guy into the set and be like, you just tell us a story, or tell it, like, and he is just that guy. Like, I can't name too many other performances, like, just off the top of my head, that where I'd be like, no, that's not acting, that's the person. That's just
Yeah.
a person that they brought in front of a camera, and that he crushes that.
It's like the movie. It's like the characters in the movie Kids.
Butterscotch, yo.
Well, it's a terrible joke because I think that's easily the first and last time anyone has drawn comparisons between Fiddler on the Roof and Kids, which is one of the roughest watches.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a
I
rough
know it's a
hang.
very dark film. I don't know enough about the performances. But I thought this
Oh,
was
it's hilarious. It's a lighthearted romp through the streets of New York with these little teenage scallywags.
lighthearted romp through the streets of
Have
New
you seen
York.
Annie? It's just like Annie.
Tomorrow, come what may.
Jenny, you've tested positive for the HIV virus.
You fell in love with this film as a child, correct?
Yes.
Describe yourself as a child. I don't understand. Because I counted. I went through this film with a fine-tooth comb. I counted not one fart joke. Not one. I was like, I don't understand. As a child, the films that I like as a kid, or I just think generally kids like, I wouldn't put this on there. I would not say like an 8-year-old boy is going to be fascinated by Fiddler on the Roof. Why? What is it? What as a kid? What is it that drew you to this film?
You know, I liked some kids' movies too, or more traditional kids' movies. But this movie, it just spoke to me, and I've joked since that I love this film more than any Gentile in the world. Like I have to be in the top 5 non-Jewish people who love this film.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It just wrapped me up, and it hasn't diminished like over the years. At no point am I like, oh yeah, I look back fondly on Fiddler on the Roof, but I've really moved on because it was something I loved as a kid. It's like, no, I'm still obsessed with Fiddler on the Roof.
And a film that close to 1 billion people saw all over the world. And so more than once. I mean, because it's repeated every Christmas and every Easter, and so they've seen it since they've been children and grew up and so on.
I have the swag. I have it on the album. I have, excuse me.
Well, while Everett goes into his feelings box and pulls out things from his childhood that he loves so much, I'll sit with you while he does that.
My family knows to just like buy me Fiddler on the Roof stuff. He's dancing.
Yeah, no, I know what he's
Yeah,
doing. He
classic.
does this thing, whatever
Classic
this thing is.
moment.
I wouldn't have to work hard.
The songs, I think, are really wonderful. That's a big part of being a kid. I think that's something in this film that makes this film so special, is the strength of the music. I think we've talked before about musicals in general. Kind of like most people either love them or hate them.
Yeah.
And it goes without saying, but a film musical really lives and dies by their songs. And for a lot of reasons, to me, this film is the best representation of what a musical can be. And I think that probably drew me in as a child as well.
I didn't realize how familiar the songs were. When I heard them, I'm like, oh, I've heard this in variations forever, and you just never know where the origin is. And then you hear a couple of these songs, and you're like, oh, it's from this. This is how good this is.
That terrible Gwen Stefani song came from this movie.
Came from this. Thank you, Miss Stefani.
I think one of the things, as I've gotten older and I can kind of pinpoint more of what I like about it now, is that I don't enjoy a lot of musicals. There's a few musicals I really liked as a kid, this obviously being the number one, but this is the only one I still really like. And I think that's probably because it's different from most other musicals in the sense that the songs seem a little more natural. They occur at more natural times, and there really aren't any gigantic production songs. As a comparison, I would offer La La Land, which is a more recent film, obviously. Hugely popular. People love that. I'm not crazy about that movie, and people love that first opening scene where they break it. All the people on the freeway break into song and dance, and they're dancing on top of cars, and they're doing this whole choreographed moves around the LA freeway. And it's like, yes, from a production standpoint, it's very impressive. From a choreography standpoint, it's very impressive. But it just immediately requires such a suspension of disbelief, which most musicals do. You brought up the circus one, the Greatest Showman, in our Willy Wonka episode, where it's like they're conveying important information about the plot through song, and the butcher's throwing a knife to dance, and the candle maker's lighting candles and doing a dance, and it's just so unrealistic.
Yeah.
Whereas this film, I think really all of the songs seem more intimate and personal, and with the exception of maybe one or two, occur in a way that you could actually see someone maybe singing. Like someone might start singing when the most popular songs anyway are Tevye singing by himself, Tradition. He's just singing while he's walking, or in the If I Were a Rich Man, he's in his barn by himself just having an imagination, imagining a better life. Or Sunrise, Sunset, they're singing while they're praying, or at a wedding, or like you can see that stuff. And that goes a long way for me with a musical.
Agreed. Yeah, the musicals are always tough for me for that reason, because I just never know how to interpret them. Just like, what is this? Is it literal? Is it metaphorical? Is it both somehow? What do I do with this? So it's tough for me. But this, to your point, it's more seamless. It's more seamless here, where it's not as like a star. Oh, we're singing now, and there's people getting out of their cars and dancing too, and
yeah.
So yeah.
And maybe it also helps that, and I'm just speaking off the top of my head, but maybe it also helps that Tevye is always breaking the fourth wall. So there's a certain level of insideness anyways.
That's a good
probably
point.
Makes the music seem less jarring, because it's like, of course he's singing. He's talking to us. Like,
Yeah.
I could see that.
I've always been a fan, obviously, being such a big Mel Brooks fan. All he does is break the fourth wall. So it's I like that about this film. I like, again, within his performance, that I feel part of this film. He welcomes me into the film. He communicates with me, the viewer, throughout the film. And then I also love, I think, like within that, he also does the thing where he looks and talks to God as another person you never see, or is not like a character of the film, but sort of is, obviously. Like his little looks are so funny and so like poignant when he just his little like you seeing this, like, and it doesn't have to like make a dialogue about it. It doesn't deviate too far. It's a little quick thing, and we get it, he gets it, and we move on. I think those to that point, it makes it more delightful for the audience to be part of this, and I think it's easier to forgive, to circle back to the point that we were talking about. It's easier for the audience member to forgive those quote unquote unrealistic changes, like people don't naturally break out into song, but in this world, this universe, it makes a lot more sense. It makes more sense that would happen.
His relationship with God is really a great draw, and is very, again, endearing. I just feel like everything he does is so endearing. But just the little subtle eye rolls, like you're talking about, the like, you want to have a friendship with anyone, like he has with God in this movie, which is really pretty phenomenal, I think.
It is very good. It's one of my favorite parts about the film, is those little, that thread of him talking to God, or just God being present in his life.
Every one of us knows who he is and what God expects him to do.
I'm not the biggest God supporter, but
Oh, good.
Here we go. Here we go, guys.
Take. Keith coming out as anti-God.
I don't know if there's a big guy in the sky, like looking down, being like, no, yes, no. You eating ham today? No, that's shitty. Like I don't know that guy exists.
He's invested in my life, and he cares about what I'm doing.
It's the most self-centered shit ever. God is keeping track.
Keith just broke the profanity rule while insulting the existence of God.
We all know where I'm going.
All right.
Great luau, Satan.
Thanks to you, Gary.
Okay, so I think people tune in a lot for your terrible opinions. So please proceed with what you didn't like about this film. Step
into my pit of despair. Here's my takeaway. The thing that I don't want to say I don't like. That's not the right way to phrase it at all. because overall I like the film. I do. I like the film. I like what happens. It's enjoyable. What bothers me from a selfish standpoint, from what Keith Macri wants to feel at the end of this film. At the end of this film, I don't understand why it has to be so sad. Like, that's what, like, selfishly, I just wish there was one more, I wouldn't even call it a scene, shot. I wish there was one more shot that showed their new life. I think they go to New York. I think where they say that they're going to go to New York.
Maybe Chicago.
Chicago
no,
or New York. I think it's New York.
Yeah.
Someone else might be going to Chicago. But
Laser
regardless,
Wolf goes to Chicago. Laser Wolf's going to Chicago.
Yeah, that pedophile is... that girl's like 10 years old he wanted to marry.
She's 19.
He's like 15.
19.
Listen, we have well documented...
Hey, things were different in the old country.
We've sniffed out pedophiles before, and I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, those kids are in 6th grade in Willy Wonka. How dare you insult Laser Wolf? He's a good man, a fine man, and a catch.
Do not defend that Santa Claus imposter. I digress. What I don't understand is the film ends on just the slightest hint of positivity with the metaphor of the, come on, Fiddler, we're going to keep playing our music and balancing and finding our way and figuring out how to exist in this world. Like, I get it, and I'm sure your argument will be that, you know, that's the point. But from a film standpoint, a viewer, from an audience standpoint, not a film standpoint, from an audience member standpoint, and as someone who has fallen in love, and I will say it honestly, I fell in love with that character and his family. And more than anything, do I want to see him succeed. And I watched this man's life get systematically broken down, and everything he loves gets stripped away from him minute by minute of the film, and then it just ends. And that makes me sad. And I'm sad enough. I love this character. I'm rooting for this character. I want him to succeed in some kind of way, some tangible way, where at the end of the film, I can say to myself, before I go to bed at night, say, he's going to be okay.
I say this with all sincerity, not even trying to be funny. I really do think this is your worst opinion we've had on this show yet. Like, I think this is...
so many shitty...
many
bad
most opinions are subjective, but I do think this one is objectively wrong from a filmmaking perspective. I just think as you mentioned, the entire metaphor of this film is the uncertainty and the hardship, and it's the Jewish people's history of persisting in the face of such overwhelming struggle and tragedy as a culture, as a religion. And there's a larger question that the conversation we should have at some point about. I feel like you personally feel like films are there to make you feel good. That's why you watch films. You want to feel good. And I would challenge that's not why films exist. Is it better to feel good or hopeful at the end of a movie? Or is it better to just feel strongly and be impacted in a powerful way?
I would agree. I got to jump in. I'm sorry. I agree that what you're saying, film should make you feel. I've said that. We can go back. You can insert a clip. I know I've said that on this show before. A sign of a good film is that it makes you feel, period. Any which way. The argument I'm making here is that this film, and from my perspective, it's a combination of both. I don't think this film warrants a quote-unquote unhappy ending, which, again, we could argue that it is or isn't. I'm not saying it's like an unhappy ending, but this film isn't dark enough where your protagonist is left in shambles and you still feel satisfied, because it's that type of film. It's too jovial of a film for that to happen, in my opinion. So it's a combination of this film specifically with the general tone of it. It's a jovial tone. He's a happy guy. He's a happy-go-lucky. There's songs in it, for Christ's sake. Like, it's more of a positive tone than any other type of tone. And then I'm just saying, me as a viewer, how much I care about this character. That's just a selfish opinion. I don't apply that opinion to every film. I apply that to this film.
Yeah, but that's the magic of the film, and any film I think that really leaves you with emotional impact is it needs to connect you to that character, and you need to be sort of seduced into this positivity to really make a point that might not be super optimistic at the end really land, because you're like, shit, I love these people, and that's why this is so heartbreaking and powerful. And I would disagree a little bit that the general tone of the film is jovial. It certainly is for the entire first portion before the intermission. But then I think once that wedding scene happens where the pogrom happens and they rough everybody up and he's literally standing there in the middle staring up at God asking why, there's still humor and warmth after that, but it is sort of a slow descent in terms of joke a minute, happy-go-lucky, because there's a real threat looming over them that whole time. And I think in that whole second half, it starts to, by the time that they're forced out of their homes, I think all the songs in the second half are pretty somber as well. They're not singing about wonder of wonder and miracle of miracles at that point. But I would just say that really, I just think you cannot have another shot after that, because it's not... That undercuts the entire point of the film. And the entire point of the film is Tevye and his family and that village and the Jewish people as a whole persist and don't give up, even not knowing what the future will bring. They never lose that sense of hope. They're never going to stop balancing on that roof and fiddling away, because that they find happiness and purpose in everything they can. And that final shot is him literally lugging his entire life's belongings and his remaining family down a muddy road that they can barely navigate. But he's got music in his heart, and he's winking back at that friend, his imaginary friend, saying, "Come on, I'm not giving up that joy and that love." And so would it? Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, would it absolutely destroy that by showing one shot in America? Yes. Like it just really. I don't. There's no point. It's not necessary, because if you go, if the point of your film is things might not be okay, but I want to make sure no one leaves too sad. That's
I speak right now as a viewer, not as a filmmaker. Granted, I'm not a filmmaker. I'm a trash maker, but as a viewer, I wish. From a filmmaking standpoint, maybe you're right. I don't think you are. I think it would be equal at best. I don't think it would deteriorate from a filmmaking standpoint. It would just make some people happier. That's all. That's the worst case scenario, is other people are happier. But the point is still made. The point is still made.
Not to harp on it, but don't you think that closing shot is more powerful?
Yes.
Him with the...
Yes. So then let me ask you this question. So for endings of films, can there be an impactful, positive ending to a film then? Because anything unhappy, anything where the protagonist doesn't feel like they win, is more powerful, just by definition, because it is not the norm. It's not your typical popcorn type. You see, every movie ends in happiness. So do you like any film that your track record speaks to only liking films where the protagonist loses at the end? Would you like that's just your taste at that point? Name me a film where the character succeeds at the end that you're like, oh, that was so impactful.
Apollo 13 is a movie I absolutely love, and those guys come back, and the fucking space station's clapping and cheering, and I cry every time I watch that, and I've watched that movie 50, 100 times. Like, that's just one example off the top of my head. Tremors is another one.
We're back to Tremors again. We're back to Tremors again.
My main argument here is I don't think it's I think it's you're oversimplifying to call this just he loses. This is a negative ending for him. Like, the point of it is that it's not, because because it's such a small victory, but it's such an important victory that he's not losing his hope, he's not losing his humanity, he's not losing that. In the face of overwhelming adversity, he is saying, we will press on and we will find joy in life. And that is a win. That is a positive ending.
I get the end of the film. I get what's trying to happen. I get what they're doing. I get that is a victory for him. It just feels, the reality of the situation that you are left with is sad. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I want this film and this character. This is purely my feelings of the film. I'm speaking from a viewer standpoint, not from a filmmaking standpoint. How I feel is probably exactly how the creators and makers of the film wanted me to feel. Like, I get everything you're saying. I just wish I could feel better at night when I sleep and I think about Tevye.
Yeah, and I wish every movie ended happy with everybody naked and a big happy orgy scene and they're all eating delicious food.
Yep.
And they come out of the television and they give me a massage. Like, I wish all of these happy things.
Yeah, you should make
But
films.
that's not how life and storytelling is. Like, especially a whole story that's about a metaphor for the Jewish journey, like the Jewish people. Like, I'm sorry. You don't get a neat ending that makes you go, okay, Tevye's gonna be okay, because we don't know. That's the whole point, Keith.
If they just did literally, all I'm suggesting, and this is off the top of my head, I'm not even saying like this is what I would do. I'm just saying like if he starts walking and the fiddler walks with him and there's no nod at that point, but then it just dissolves. There's a slow crossfade to a shot of him at his new house with him and his wife building something in a barn or whatever, and the girl's running around, and the camera just pulls out, and the fiddler is literally on the roof playing. That's it. That's what I'm asking for.
But then there's no intent.
That doesn't ruin anything. It accomplishes the same thing you're talking about. The fiddler's still on the roof. They're making it work. They're like, it's not saying like, oh, everything's perfect now. It's just saying they've made it to that point in their lives and they're okay for that one day. That's it. That's all I'm asking for.
That's what it is now.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. We're okay at this moment because despite all this shit, literally in the worst situation we could be in, there's still hope. I'm inviting the hope to come with us. You can't get rid of him. You can't get rid of him acknowledging.
You are satisfied with his perspective. Because that's all the wink and the nod gives you, is that inside he can't be broken. And that's enough for you. I get it. For morons like me, I want to see it. I personally, in this film, would like to see it, rather than just assume his perspective. I want one shot.
And undercut the entire fucking point of the film. Who was your favorite daughter?
I don't know. Seidel? I don't know. That's the only one I could name, probably.
You're a Seidel guy?
I thought it was pretty well written. I think it's really sharp. I think it's really funny. There's so many funny lines. I'm a big fan. There was a lot of this in like Hitchcock stuff too. I think we talked about that in the Rear Window episode. Like there's a lot of jokes that don't feel like they have punchlines. They're just said and they're in conversation and they are wildly funny. And I think that's because I don't know if I possess that trait and I admire things that I probably can't do. And I think this film does it really well where there's just conversation that is funny. Not like, da-da-da, you know, like there's no real punchline to it. It just is. Yeah,
the back and forth between Tevye and Golde especially I love. I love when she mumbles to herself.
You can die from such a man.
I think that's a really funny thing to say. Yeah. And I just love that while she's muttering that, he's like muttering to God about...
Send us the cure. We've got the sickness already.
Just little conversations like that. I love every time Tevye, it happens 2 or 3 times, where he like loses his mind and he's trying to assert his dominance and his masculinity over his family. And it's just such an act. And it's so hilarious when he wants to see the sewing machine and he's like,
I am the man in the house. I'm the head of the family. And I want to see Mortal's new machine now! Now let's go home.
Tevye misquoting the Bible at every turn is a bit that never stops giving.
As Abraham said, I'm a stranger in a strange land.
Moses said that.
Forgive me.
I would just say this film is a joy, even if you don't love musicals, even if you don't find yourself super interested in the plight of some of the Jewish community in the Ukraine around the early 1900s. If that doesn't immediately make you want to watch, the film is just a joy, and it's heartwarming and it's powerful and it's sad. But I defy anyone to watch this film and not enjoy it at least once. You know, like I get that people are, oh God, it's almost 3 hours. Oh God, it's a musical. Oh God. Just watch it. Like it's really good. Keith, it's really good.
It's good. You should watch it. If you like films, you should watch it. If you want to be happy at the end, maybe don't watch it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Have you ever taken part in a traditional Jewish meal?
No, I've not.
I partook in when I was 16 or 17. One of my dear friends has a Jewish grandmother, and we went for Passover, I believe. Okay. It's the one that's in the springtime. I think it was Passover. I'm sorry if I'm incorrect. But it was awful. Beautiful culture. Love the culture. The food is not great. Gefilte fish.